Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The last time I was in this chamber, I had cause to warn my honourable friend, the Rail Minister, that in Sussex we have a habit of burning in effigy people who have particularly irritated us. And at the moment, those who go via Thames Link Rail are high up on that list. But running a very close second are those who are responsible for undermining the policy of neighbourhood planning, which should be heralded as such a great success for this government. Yeah. It was the policy by which power was going to be returned to local people. They were going to have control over where development went, and decisions that are taken in neighbourhood plans are entered into by the whole community in plans that are drawn up by volunteers and then voted on by the whole community in local referenda. And just as we are now debating nationally the importance of honouring a referendum result, so locally it gravely undermines democracy when the decisions which local communities take can so easily be ridden over. And I'm afraid this is exactly what is happening. And my honourable friend, who I welcome to his place very much, I hope will take back this message to his department, because this, Sir Christopher, is like Groundhog Day. We have had this debate endlessly in this chamber, on the floor of the House of Commons, and we are constantly told, yes, the government has understood the problem and will do something about it. And indeed, in December 2016, Gavin Barwell, then the minister, an excellent minister, now the Prime Minister's excellent Chief of Staff, did introduce some helpful new guidance that was precisely designed to deal with this problem, that would ensure that neighbourhood plans would be respected, that the speculative developers could not win in the way that my honourable friend so ably described that they do. But the problem with that guidance is, firstly, neighbourhood plans it could only apply to neighbourhood plans that were just 2 years old, or from 2 years from the date of that guidance. And secondly, if local authorities didn't have a 3-year land supply, then the guidance didn't work at all. And so subsequent to those new measures being introduced, I have had at least 2 decisions taken right up to the Planning Inspectorate or to the Secretary of State, and then lost on appeal because that guidance could not be brought into place, so it offered no protection to the local community on these technicalities. And what happened is the speculative developers won. And it's very important to underline the point that my honourable friend made, which is that this is not the way to increase house building in this country. I think we stand united by a desire to increase the housing supply. We know that this is a political and economic and social imperative. Everybody gets that. But the whole point about neighbourhood plans is that they did deliver more housing than was anticipated, significantly more housing, and best of all, they did it with local consent. So if you bring local communities together and you tell them that they're going to be given power, and you ask them to accept responsibility, and then they do by taking difficult decisions, sometimes in the face of strong local opposition, and agree that development should go in certain places, but other places should be protected. And if those communities are working on the assumption then that what they were told was true, and that those areas would be protected for 15 years, the life of the plans, and then they see almost within months that that meant absolutely nothing, that the developers can simply charge in, and worse, that the promises they were then given by their local member of parliament, that everything would be made better because of the new guidance that we were given in December 2016, which the CPRE, who worked on this with me and honourable friends, all of us said this was going to be a help. And no doubt it has helped in some circumstances, but by no means in all, as I have indicated. What happens then is support for the neighbourhood plans collapses. And in West Sussex, I'm now finding it difficult to persuade communities that haven't done neighbourhood plans to enter into them, because they say, well, look at what happened in the neighbouring village. They went through this process that costs a lot of money, costs the volunteers a lot of grief, and then they say, is it really worth it? Because the developers come in and they simply override the plans anyway. So I'll give way to my honourable friend.
I'm grateful for my giving way. He's making an incredibly powerful point to the Minister about the undermining of trust in the system. But would he also agree with me that there's something else going on, which is that where, as in my case, a district council has agreed to put the housing on the right place, down by the main road, in our case the A11, the developers are simply banking those permissions for later. They know they're going to get them, and using the 5-year land supply to force the wrong development on the wrong places. So not only are we undermining trust in the system, we're getting the wrong development in the wrong places, which is deeply undermining people's ability to say yes to new housing. It's compounding the problem.
My other friend puts it incredibly well, and I strongly agree, and that's why this is so cynical. It's not just that the developers are taking advantage of a loophole, they are gaming the system, and that's what we have to understand. And as a consequence, I believe that we are building fewer houses than we could be if they were actually required to do what I think policy should require them to do, which is to deliver. Now, I know that my right honourable friend, the member for whichever constituency in Dorset it is, has been charged with looking at this. And that's important, but there are changes that we could make in the meantime, as my honourable friend has suggested. So may I just make two final points to the Minister. First of all, the government is incorporating the guidance that it issued into December 2016 into the new national policy framework. Could they look again at the threshold for the 3-year land supply and the longevity of the test? Because under both of those things, the suitability of this as a remedy is being lost. It's not as effective as it should be. And also, could they look at the wording that they're using? Because the wording that they're using to incorporate it, which defines recently brought into force neighbourhood plans as meaning a neighbourhood plan which was passed at referendum 2 years or less before the date on which the decision is made, is leading some to believe that neighbourhood plans simply fall after 2 years, which I'm sure is not what the government means. And I think it would be helpful to clarify that they don't mean that. But secondly, and more importantly, actually policy needs to change. We need to move away from 5-year land supplies as the test to delivery as the test. That is the fundamental change that needs to be made if we actually want to build houses and we wish to do so with public consent. And I would suggest that that is the better way to do it.